Starting. Cool, guys. So my name's Tom. I'm the Adventure Academy lead. This is the third bike maintenance video we're doing. And today we are talking about changing cables and housing. So this is the cable, this is the housing rather, and this is the cable. Now the cable hides inside the housing and it slips back and forth. This is an example of a chunk of housing. Okay, so you probably see these all over your bike, and if you look through them, I don't know if you can see through that, but there's these little holes in either end, and this is what the cable looks like. So this cable is what actually makes your brake caliper. This is called the caliper right here. When you pull on a brake lever, it moves that brake caliper. Now I've disconnected them right now because we're going to take them apart. I've also unwrapped my handlebars. So we were talking, this is a road bike. Typically they have wrapped handlebars, which goes over the cable and housing. Okay. So we're going to replace the brake cable and housing today. You also have a derailleur cable and housing. Does anyone know what a derailleur is? What does a derailleur do on a bike?
It shifts your gears.
Yeah, totally, exactly. Most bikes have two derailleurs. Not all, but most of them. My bike has two. One derailleur is right here, and the other's here in the back. So we're just doing the brake cable and housing today. So let's start. If you have a road bike, for example, like I do, you're going to find the cable ends are inside of your brake levers. If you have a mountain bike, your levers are going to be right here, and it works all the same. Particularly when you squeeze it, if you look down inside, you'll see where that cable goes into. We got one more person coming in. All right, perfect. I'm going to rotate this so we can see a little bit better, a little closer to you guys. You see that all right? Cool. Alrighty, let's start with the front one here. You'll see right here where the cable end is that there's usually a crimp over it, or there should be. We are going to take that crimp and snip it off. I just have a very standard pair of pliers here. We're going to pop it in there, and it requires a bit of pressure, but squeeze hard, snap it all off. Hopefully you can cut through all those cable ends. There it goes. So if we look at this cable, if you can see that, you realize that it's stranded together. There's a whole bunch of little wires in here, all making up this cable. And you see that it's not just one piece of metal. When you cut through that, sometimes you don't get them all. It's really important that you have a clean cut through this. It'll make it so much easier. So we just cut that. And now I'm doing my front brake caliper. There's also a little bolt right here, a little screw. This is going to require a hex key. Now we just talked about this a little bit ago, some of the people that just got here, but you will need a set of hex keys. Okay? These are basically wrenches. They're very, very basic wrenches, but most bikes are metric. So you're going to want to make sure that you have a metric wrench. Okay? These are all numbered, 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 5, and those all talk about the millimeter size of the wrench. For this, it's probably a 4 or a 5. I'm going to try the 5 first. We're going to take that, pop it in there. It is a 5. And we're just going to loosen that. Not all the way, just one turn or so. And now my cable is free. I'm going to pull the cable out. Okay. And now when I compress my brake lever, you can see that there's a little window that opens up. If I go into that window and I push on this end of the cable, we should see, no, it doesn't want to go. I'm just going to pull it out there. Hold it down, and then we're pushing back through. Come on. It wants to. You see it trying to come out there? Let's see if we can coax it out. I'm going to get a little screwdriver, something to pull on it. And we are going to take that little cable end and push it out. You have to have 4 hands to do this, by the way. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so if I pull on this, watch what happens on the end here. Okay, so that's what was hiding inside. Now, you want to inspect your cable when you change it, because a lot of times you're only changing your cables and housing when you realize that your brakes aren't working super well, and you know that it's not your caliper here. So as we look at our cable, what do you notice about this one?
It's bent.
Yeah, exactly. So that bend in it actually creates a lot of friction within the housing, okay? So we're gonna hold on to this because this cable right here is the proper length. So we got the first cable, we're gonna leave that right there on the bench. And now we're gonna pull our housing out, okay? If we look at our housing too, we also can kind of see that bend that was in it. We'll also start to see spots where it was rubbed. I don't know if you can see that too well. There's kind of a hole forming in it. And then there's also a little cap on the end. These caps are really, really good, and you can reuse these most of the time. So I'm gonna pull that off. Okay. Hold on to the cap. You're also gonna notice your hands will get totally filthy while you do this. Bikes are really dirty. You can wear little gloves, or just be sure you wash your hands super well afterwards. Okay, hold on to that. I actually pre-cut a new cable or new housing. I'm gonna do a different one. I'm gonna make it match my derailleurs because they're black as well. And you just wanna hold it up next to it and make sure that it's a similar length. Okay, let's do the rear one. It's the same kind of process. I'm gonna swing the bike around and pull it over a little bit. Okay. Same thing back here. I've already snipped the end off of this one to make it quick for us. And I'm gonna come up here to the brake lever. Get my little screwdriver again. This is a little more difficult because we've got a longer reach. But you're pushing on the end of your cable and to get it to come back through. And we're gonna coax that out here with our little screwdriver. Okay, and there it comes. Perfect. So, what about this cable? How does that look?
Looks like one piece
Yeah,
or very long.
it's nice and long. And you know, there's a little crimp right here in it, but that's just from that bolt that compressed it. And now you can also feel along it too, like right here, it's kind of expanded. It's probably not ideal. That might be from it sliding in and out of the housing. Feeling along it, it feels okay. I still think I'm gonna replace it though. So we're gonna put that there. And we're gonna grab this. Now, a lot of bikes are different with their housing. Sometimes the housing will come to a spot like this. If you can see this here, I'm gonna pull a little closer. My derailleur is a great example. So can you see here where the housing goes? And then all of a sudden it hits this thing, and there's my cable. The cable is exposed. That's perfectly fine. Totally normal thing. Just realize that every bike is different. So you kind of need to adapt how you change your cables and housing to how your bike is built. This one, for example, my rear brake cable comes out of my brake lever here and goes through these small holes all the way back till it hits this. So I'm gonna take that and pull it out. Okay. All right, here we go. Now on this one, can you guys see that? What do you see inside of that? What does that look like?
It looks like the wire.
Yeah, it does kind of. And what we realize, I wonder if I can peel that off to show you. Inside of the housing, there is a metal coil. So I'm just going to cut this back a little bit so we can see. There we go. I'm going to hold on to that little cap because I can reuse it. So if you see there what I just did, I just cut away that so you can see. So on the outside, there's a plastic sheet that goes all the way around it. Okay. But on the inside, there's a little coil of metal. That metal is really what gives it the rigidity. And sometimes, let's see if we can get this out. There it is. You see that? Sometimes these things can get crimped. So if you put a lot of pressure on it, it gets stuck like that. Now that's not ideal. Also, when we start peeling it back, that was a really good place to bend it. Do you see what's inside of there?
More plastic tubing.
Exactly. That little plastic tube is what makes it so easy for that cable to slide in and out. Now on this one, that little plastic tube should be clear up here at the end, but it's not. So this really needs to be replaced pretty badly. So we're going to take the length of that. We're going to take our new cable. I've already cut these just to make sure. And we're going to check to make sure it's the same length. And this one, I cut a little bit too long. So we're going to snip it really quick. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now they make a whole bunch of different types of pliers, wrenches, all sorts of things specific for bike maintenance. And there is one specifically just to cut cables. You can go out and get that tool if you want, or we can just do it with one of these. This is a fencing pair of pliers. It works all the same. We've got a chunk from cutting it earlier stuck in there. Let's see if I can dig that up before we do this. Stuck in there pretty good. Okay. All right. So this function is really similar to the other ones. It shears it off. I just need to take a couple inches off of here. So I'm going to place it inside. Make sure it's seated all the way. And squeeze hard and make sure you get a clean cut, or as clean as you can. Okay. Give that a hard squeeze. All right, I made it almost all the way through, just a little bend. Now, can you see that shiny piece of metal?
Yeah.
It's not perfectly clean. You want to make sure that that is nice and clean and it's not going to catch your wire, because that'll cause your wire to fray, or your cable rather. So we have a file. This is a very basic file. We're going to take that and just file the end. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay. Inspect it. Make sure we don't have anything sharp anywhere. And take it down. One thing I did want to say too while we're going through this is that by doing work on your own bike, you can save yourself a ton of money. If you were to take a bike like this and go to a bike shop and you ask them to do the work for you, you'd probably be looking at $80 to $100. I paid $15 for the cables and housing, so I'm saving myself about $75, $80. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, you're going to want something that you can get inside of that, because can you see the hole? Maybe not super well. You just want to make sure that that plastic tube that's inside of there is open and ready to take that cable. So I'm just taking this little spike here. This is actually an awl for wood, but it works all the same. You just need something. A dental pick would work. Just don't use it on your teeth. Get in there and clean it out. Looks like I bumped myself. You're going to get bloody knuckles. Wearing gloves is a good idea for that, but just for the dexterity, I really prefer not to. I'll be dropping stuff all over the place. Let me get a little paper towel for that. Right. So now that we have our housing that's cut to place, we're going to start reassembling it all. Let's take those caps that we got off of the first set. We're going to do, I'll move you guys back so you can see the front of the bike again. Oh, that was my charger. Okay, so I'm going to put these caps over the end, okay, and on this end. Perfect. And we're going to start reassembling this. We're going to put it inside, so you want to reach inside of your calipers, and a lot of times they have these feet on them. I wonder if you can see it a little bit better. There you go. They have these little rubber feet, and we're going to peel that back so we can see inside of it, just like that. Take the end of your housing and slide it in place, right through there. You'll see a lot of these are engineered to have slots. You can see that, yep. Now, one other thing you're going to need when you're doing this, especially on road bikes, oh, that's the wrong one actually. You have to pay attention too, because I removed my rear housing from this one. This goes to my rear brake. This one goes to my front brake. Just make sure. I almost installed that backwards. So we're going to pop this guy in. And to hold it in place, we have some tape. Can anyone tell me what kind of tape this is? Have you guys seen this kind of tape before?
Electrical.
Yeah, exactly. Electrical tape is actually great for working on bikes. It's super flexible, it sticks super well, and it is way cheaper than what they'll sell you at a bike shop. So we're just going to get a little chunk of that. Peel that back. I only need, I don't know, 4 inches of it, not too much. And we're not going to wrap it too hard. I'm just going to hold it in place, just like that. Okay, because I'm going to come back later and do that. Now I need to be sure that I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do with my cables because I have to wrap them around my handlebars and get them back in. So I'm just trying to think, like, lay this out as a schematic. Maybe I don't want it to go right on the outside. I wonder if I can get this so you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. So sometimes you don't want it really to go on the outside because that's where your hand is going to go. So if you can see these channels on the inside, those are designed for your cable. So I'm going to draw this guy over. See if I can't coax them into that spot. You see how they kind of fall into it like that? That's what we want. So I'm actually going to put this guy right in the corner because that'll get me a little bit closer. And this guy's coming down and going right into this right here. Now these barrels are ways that you can micro adjust your brakes. And for the most part, you want it right in the middle of that range. So as you see, I can screw out quite a ways and I can screw in quite a ways. Why would I not want it all the way down or all the way out? You guys know? What does this little barrel do? Anybody?
Does it feed it into the little brake mechanism?
Yeah, this essentially is a way to adjust your brakes. So you guys have probably been riding your bike and you squeeze your brakes and you didn't really stop. That's because your brakes probably weren't set right. So if you ever run into that, the first thing you should do is to check your barrel. So reach down here, grab the barrel, and start spinning it. Chances are you're going to spin it out. So if I have this thing all the way down, per se, and then I need to adjust my brakes, I can spin it out, but then I'll never be able to spin it back down. So that's why when we're doing this, we're going to get it right to the middle of its travel. Something about like that. And I'm just going to put this guy with the housing, or with the end right in there. Now that end seems a little big. I wonder if I have a smaller one. Doesn't really want to go inside. Yeah, I think I do have smaller ones. Perfect. It's good to keep a little baggie of these on hand if you end up with extras. Just don't throw them out. You can almost always reuse them. Okay, let's see if that guy will fit. I don't think it will, actually. We're just not going to use it. And that's perfectly fine. That's actually how the initial ones were. I thought that maybe they were just forgotten about, but let's put it back in. So that guy will pop right into place. Perfect. Okay. So let's grab our cable. Right? So this is that initial cable. We know it's the right length. So let's grab a new one. You will realize too that cables are different depending if it's a road bike or a mountain bike, and also if it's a brake caliper or a derailleur. So here we have one for a road bike, and we know that it's the right one because it matches our old one. We're going to take one of these, and we're just going to pull it right next to the other one. Let me uncoil all these. Perfect. We're just going to take it right up next to it, pull it all the way until we find out where it ended. Now, because we snipped off the end of this, I'm going to give myself just a couple of inches just to work with. We're going to put it within our plier and make sure that we get a clean cut. I'm going to squeeze really hard. Perfect. All right, the rest of this is kind of useless. I don't know if you can be creative, think of something, but there's not a lot we can do with these because we need to have that on the end. You can see why these are special. Okay, so we're going to do the reverse thing of what we did the first time. We are going to squeeze our brake caliper, and we're feeding the end that doesn't have the head on it, okay? Just the blunt end that we cut. And we are going right back through that little hole, and you will be able to see it. Yep, there it is. You can kind of see there's a little spot. It's super hard to show you on a video, but there's a little spot inside of that that will seat that head within it. I'm going to do this, and hopefully we will line up with our housing. And I'm going to pull the housing out here because I feel like it's going to be that much easier. And I'm going to get it started just right here, feeding it into the end. Perfect. And seating this all the way down. Now I am shooting for that little hole I'm going to undo this wrap that I did initially and just see if I can't get it to fit in there nice and snug. Okay, pretty good. I have an idea though. I'm going to take this hex key. I'm going to loosen up this entire caliper. I wonder if I'll be able to do that just with my hands. I think I can get that thing to sit in there a little bit better. Let me go get some gloves so I don't get more bloody knuckles. Okay. I'm just going to see if we can pop this brake caliper up, or this brake lever rather. There it goes. Okay. Loosen that up, and I see a spot right here that I can tuck that housing in. I think I'm going to get a lot better result that way. And now I'm just going to tighten it right back down. One thing to think about when you are positioning your brake levers is how your hands are going to sit on it. I really like it, so this is consistent right here. You can kind of see on this one a little bit better if I flip this down. You can see that this all kind of becomes a similar line, and that's really comfortable for my hand to sit on. So I'm going to do the same on this one, also making sure they're in line this way, and just tightening it back down. Perfect. Yes, that's great. That holds it exactly where I want it. Okay. Got that guy in place. Let's put this initial wrap back on it. Okay, see how long I can last wearing these gloves. Perfect. So now that we have this, we're going to push it all the way through. Keep feeding it and watch for right. Let's see if you guys can see that. Look out right here, okay? Eventually, we will see it pop through. There it is, see? Perfect. Awesome. Pulling it down through. Making sure that it's sitting inside of my brake lever here. And you can see when you pull that, how it moves my hand up and down. That's the mechanism that is making our brakes work. Now here down on our caliper, we have that screw. I wonder if I can move you guys over a little bit so you can see that a little better. We have that screw that we tightened initially, or loosened initially for this. But you also see that here's this little lever. Now that little lever needs to be in the down position. If you adjust it in the up position and then you flip it back down, your brakes will seize and they won't, it won't work as the brakes should. So we're going to flip it down like it should be. We're grabbing our 5mm hex key. We are loosening this just to the point that we can get our cable back down through it. Perfect, just like that. Now at this point, our brakes are all the way open. They're super wide. I don't know if you can see the gap there, but I have about 1/4 inch on either side. That's a little too much. I'm gonna squeeze my brake slightly, get it close as I can actually, because you're gonna get the most braking power if you are as close as possible. While you squeeze those brake calipers, we're gonna put our hex key in. You can't really see that. Wish I could get here. I'm gonna scoot you back and then I'm gonna rotate the tire. There we go. I wonder if I can change hands here. Perfect. Okay, with it squeezed just off of that rim of our tire or of our wheel, we are tightening that key down, making sure this is in the down position. Okay, and it's tight. That was pretty much it. Now it's set, but now we need to tune it to make sure it's going to work how we want it. So I'm going to see if my wheel can spin freely, and it can. Now let's try to brake. It's okay, but I can still move that with my hand. Now there's a couple things we can do too, really. We could adjust with our little barrel here, or we could move this screw again. Now because I'm in my shop and I have all the tools here, I'm going to move this screw because I know that in the future I might need to adjust this. It is very, very normal for when you go biking that you'll use your brakes, especially when you put new cables and housing in, and eventually by the end of your ride, you're like, they're not working, I just worked on my bike. Why is that? Does anyone have an idea? Why would your cables and housing not work as well after your first ride?
They're trying to get used to it?
Yeah, kinda, basically. Your cables and housing are sort of getting set in there. So like I tried my best to get this set in here just right. tried my best to get that as tight as possible, but as you use your brakes, it's actually squeezing and pulling everything into place. So we're here. Let's see if we can't get a little bit closer. Rotate this over so you can get a good view there. All right, I'm squeezing it again. I'm gonna loosen this just a little bit. And let's try squeezing a little bit tighter. Give it a turn. Okay, so my wheel still spins freely. Uh-oh, I did something funny, because now it doesn't do anything. Let's see if I can do that better next time. All right, a little bit tighter. I'm just coming off just a hair. And we're tightening that up again. Okay. Okay, spins freely. Way better. Do you see how quickly that stopped? Immediately. And as I squeeze lightly, I don't pick up until about there. Now it's a good idea too, like I say, to squeeze it, because each time you do that, you're setting it even more. So I'm going to adjust this one more time. Okay. Still spins freely. Way better. Now you can see here too, as it spins, I squeeze a little bit. You can hear it hitting. I still have that much room to compress my brake if I really need the braking power. If some dog runs out in front of me or anything in traffic, I can squeeze it all the way and I get a ton of power. If you are bottoming out your brake, it's not a good idea. Why is that?
Because then you won't, there isn't as much power when you brake, so when you really need to brake hard, you might not be able to in time.
Exactly. Yep, nailed it. So I'm going to squeeze it. And as I squeeze, I realize, now look at what just happened. You see that? Why do you think that just happened? Because I just did it again. It's that stretching that I was talking about. We are seating our cables and housing as we do this. So I'm going to undo it one more time. And this is totally normal, guys. You will go through this kind of guess and check to adjust it and make it just right. I wish there was an easy, simple, do it once and be done, but it just takes a little bit of guesswork. So I have a little bit of interference here, not a big deal, but a ton of braking power. Awesome, cool. So we got that one set like we like it. When you buy cables and housing, they will include a whole bunch of these little caps. Now, these little caps are made out of a soft, squishy material. Not super squishy. When I mean that, I guess it's a soft, somewhat squishy metal. That metal is going to protect the end of our cable from fraying. So we're going to pop that guy in there. And with our pliers, just put a little pressure on it. Just enough that it'll pop on there and stay on the end. Okay, perfect. So let's go do the back one now. We've got our long cable. Okay. We've got it trimmed to length. Okay, let me step around the computer and move this guy so we can see here a little bit better. Let's see, how's that? You see it all right? Missing a little bit here. There we go. Okie doke. So same way we did the first one. We're going to go to that same brake lever. Let's get our housing first. Get our cap out. Popping the cap onto the end. Okay. Let's get a little piece of tape. Just make sure that we're not trying to do that in the middle of the progress. Okay, I'm going to put this one right back on here so it's ready for me. And we're putting this as close as we can get it because we know it's probably going to move on us. And we're going to run it, I'm going to flip it through the bottom there. There we go. All right, put that piece of tape on it, hold it in place. Nice. Now remember with this one that this bike has all these little guides to follow all along. So let's get our housing in place first. We're going to run it just like the original one was, all the way back through those three. Okay, and then we're going right back into this guy right here. Perfect. I'm going to see if this cap will fit. I'll try one of these smaller ones. Nope, they really just don't want to go in there, so I can't use these caps on this, but that's not the end of the world. Okay. That guy is in there. And now you might notice here up by the handlebars, it looks like I have a whole bunch of extra cable. Why do you think I might want all that extra cable? Any idea?
In case it frays and you can cut off a little more?
Yeah, you might be able to do that too, totally, if something happens to the end. But actually, it's so I have the mobility to move my handlebars wherever I want them to. If my cables were really tight and I didn't have much room to move it, you might accidentally make them too short and then be turning your bike and it'll break for you because you are essentially putting pressure on your cable. So you'll be going for a turn and all of a sudden your bike will seize up. It's not what you want. So just be sure that you have a little bit extra, nothing crazy. We're gonna make a lot of this go away when we rewrap my handlebars. All right, so we got our cable somewhere. What did I do with it? There it is. And we're going through the same process on this side. We're finding out where that little guy is. And we're gonna push it through. Now, I feel like I have to do the same thing I did last time and pull this guy out of there. Got my little screwdriver that can coax this guy out. There he is. And he's going right back through the housing. And we are feeding him all the way through. Now we're keeping an eye out for right back here where the cable should come through. Now this guy's a little bit longer, so it's going to take me a minute. We're getting close. Almost. Maybe. We'll see if this one will go. I do not see it. We might need to do the other cable. All right, let's try this longer guy. Let's retry that. There he is. Feed him in. That feels good. There it is. You see that? Just poking out the end's kind of hard to see on the video. Okay. He's long, but that is perfectly fine. We can just cut the end off when we get there. I'm going to grab the end and just see it. Okay. Just double check too. Make sure you're looking inside. Everything looks good. And we're going to get that guy to seat as far in there as we possibly can. That looks good. Pull on him. One more time. Okay, great. Perfect. And again, I am going to get my cable as close as I can to where I want it to be. And I'm just going to take that electrical tape and hold it in place. Perfect. Okay, everything is looking really, really good now. I've got this guy in the back. Let's make sure that that guy's at the same spot. You remember what we call this?
A octa-square? Or
No.
octa-wrench?
Kind of. It's actually a hexagon.
Oh, a hecta-wrench or something.
Sure, yeah, that's close enough. It's a hex key or an Allen wrench. Hex key or Allen wrench. Okay, very, very standard for bike maintenance. We're coming back here. I'm going to scoot you guys back so you can see. Let's get nice and close on this guy. Maybe I can move this light a little closer. There we go. Okay, perfect. Make sure you guys can get this step. So we got this guy all lined up. I really unscrewed it quite a bit last time, so I'm gonna get it tighter. There we go, awesome. Take our long skinny end and we were feeding it right through there. Now I wish I could show you this better, but when you look at this little piece of metal here, you'll see that there's actually a spot for this guy to slide through. I don't know if you can see that too well, but you just want to be making sure that you're following the cues on the design of your bike. It really kind of guides you and tells you how you should be doing this sort of stuff. This guy's going in, okay. We are going to pull on the cable, try to seat it as much as we can. At the same time, we're going to squeeze our brake caliper. Okay, I'm going to get a hand on that. A little bit of tension on our cable. And we're tightening up that little guy right there. Okay. Feels pretty good. Let's see. Can you hear that? You see how it stopped there for a little bit? So you could keep adjusting it, but there's really no point until we squeeze that brake lever super hard. So I'm coming back here. I just heard it move again. Okay. Let's give it a shot. I'm gonna undo that and go through that same check process that we did earlier. Okay. Tension on that guy, squeezing. Okay, nice and tight, cool. Still a little bit of interference, let's squeeze it hard. Okay, and you just keep going through that several times. Just lost all that tension there. Until we can get it nice and tight. Crank that guy down. I feel like we're getting pretty close. Okay. Even more interference there. That feels awesome. Cool. Again, up there, I have plenty of room to keep compressing that brake caliper, or the brake lever right here. I have plenty of, oh, you can't quite see that. Let me switch you back. Plenty of room to still compress this even right there. I've got a couple of inches to work with right there. Getting plenty of power to stop. So I can cut this cable back here now. I'm gonna give myself a little bit of extra, just in case. Okay, nice clean cut. Good pair of sharp pliers is the ticket. And we're grabbing our cable ends and we're capping it. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys one more thing before we're done today. That was pretty much the gist of it. It's not too hard, as you see. It just takes a little bit and some patience too. It definitely takes a little bit of patience. Now I'm going to scoot you guys back so I can get in the video. You're not just looking at my torso. Perfect. Now let's see. I just had a little tube of bike lube here, and we want to lube our cables and housing before we're done. What is the purpose of lubrication? Do you guys know?
Yeah, so it slides and slips easy.
Yeah, exactly. So if I didn't have those things here, I might end up
probably kind of rough, or some gravel might get in there.
Yeah, exactly. Gravel or dust. Like, do you guys ever ride bikes on like dirt roads or maybe like a trail?
Yeah.
It's really dusty. And that dust is probably the worst stuff that can really get in there. And they make a whole bunch of different kind of bike loops. Now I need to find what I did with my little bottle. I was just doing it earlier. Oh, there it is. So I put my bike lube in a little tiny tube like this. It comes in a big bottle, but I put it in this guy because I have this nice little nozzle and I can get into all my cable and housing. So what you want to do is right here where that cable comes out. We're just going to add a little bit. Okay. We're going to do the same on this one. Right where it would get a lot of that dirt and grime. We'll just add in a little bit. I want to do some of the top of the barrel too, in case you can get down there. Okay. Doesn't take much, and that's why a little tiny bottle is really, really awesome. So we are going to wrap the handlebars. This is the fun part, in my opinion. I really love wrapping handlebars. I don't know why. It's just really fun. It's kind of a challenge. You have to be careful because you don't want to rip this. This is your tape, they call it. This is made out of leather, but a lot of times they're made out of rubber, sometimes a cork, all a bunch of different materials. It's kind of a challenge though to get it to set right. So you only need about 4 inches of your electrical tape. Now I'm just going to cut 3 of these to begin with, just so I have it. Bring you guys over here so you can see that a little better. Okay. There's 2. Let me get one more. There's 3. Okay. So we want to take, I have bar end shifters here. They're very, very basic shifters. I choose these because they're super simple to work on, but they work all the same. They have the same kind of cable and housing. And I just want to make sure that those 2 are going to be traveling together around my handlebar. So I'm pinching the 2 together. I'm getting them to sit right inside of this little crook here, like that's on this side. Even if I can't rotate it. There we go. That's much better. And I'm grabbing a piece of my pre-cut tape, pinching them together, getting them right inside where I want them. And now this stuff will stretch or elongate when you pull on it, and we want to make sure it's nice and tight. So let's stretch that electrical tape. Sounds like you guys probably have used it. You know what it looked like. Nice and tight, beautiful. That's one. Once you get one on, it's a piece of cake. We're going to do another one right here. And then one more here, right where they end. And I can see here where my old tape was, just kind of by the residue. You can clean it off. Denatured alcohol is a really, really great way to do it. You might have something like, isopropyl alcohol in your medical cabinet. That might work as well. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay. Tighten that up. And now, we should have checked before, but I know for a fact that we are good here because I made my cables a little bit longer, so I don't have any interference. It looked like we had a bunch of crazy cables going around, kind of like what's happening on this side, but you can see once we start wrapping it, it's a piece of cake. They all kind of find their home down here. Okay, so everything's good here. I'm going to take this boot that's on my brake lever and flip it back, but not quite yet, actually. I'm going to start wrapping. I got to get around that. I didn't undo this section of wrap because it was done really nicely. You want to apply pressure onto your handlebar tape and start working around. Now right here, it can get a little tricky. We've got to work around this boot here. So I'm going to do an X, come up, over, and back down. And I'm trying to hide as much of that as possible so that you don't see it once we're done. Okay, and here we go. We want to try to keep a consistent overlap the whole way around. You can kind of coax those cables and housing into the spot that you want them in this step too, if they're not exactly where you like them. And one thing you have to be careful about with leather handlebar wraps is you can tear them if you pull too hard. So we're just going to be nice and gentle. I'm not super satisfied with that, actually. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go a little bit lower here so I can hide more of that. There we go. And I'm going to come up. That looks much better to me. Okay, nice and tight. Wrapping around. I can see here there's a seam. I have to be careful not to tear that. And sometimes too, especially if you're using the same handlebar tape, you can see the line of where the last wrap was, kind of how much overlap you had. And that's a great indicator to follow. Just try to keep it consistent. Really getting around. And we're on the home stretch here. A couple more. There we go. All right, now as we're ending, we're keeping in mind that we want to end at the same spot on either side of our handlebars. And we also need enough that we can tuck the end under and then tape it. So I'm going to stop this guy right there, the perfect amount. Wrap it up. You can do it right off of the electrical tape here now. Pull your end off, and you want to go in the same way that we wrap, because we were wrapping this way around. So we're going to wrap with our electrical tape, same way. Go right over the top at least once, and then we are going to cover the edge with at least one more wrap. You don't need to go too crazy here. And one more. Cool. And that is that. Snip it. We're going to fold our boot back. Cool. And now you can't see any bit of the handlebar underneath that. It's all nice and smooth. I have new brake cables and housing, and I'm ready to go for a bike ride. Pretty awesome. So that was all for this week, guys. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
No.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining. And next week, we'll be replacing a chain, which is another really good thing to learn. So thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. You have a good night.